When we lived at Canby, I remember how much I enjoyed going out in the open field in the evening time, watching the nighthawks. They would circle around higher and higher and higher, and we would always say, when is he going to dive? When is he going to dive? He'd get higher and higher, and all of a sudden he would take off and would go, roop. Always his wings would make a whoop when he hit the bottom, and we just fascinated us. We really enjoyed that. We'd watch him over and over and over, just laying on our backs in the field, in the grass, watching him do that. And that was one of the joys that I remember of the childhood. When I was probably about 9 or 10, somewhere in there. And then another joy, there was a place about, probably 3/4 of a mile from our house, we called Wandering Springs. And it was a place where there was water just come up out of the ground all around. And then it formed a kind of a main little creek going on out. The water was really real cold. And we would, there was a fellow that lived up on the hill, way up on the hill. It was probably at least 1/4 of a mile, half a mile away. He had a ram in that spring, and the movement of the water would make that ram go poof, pump, 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 and it would push the water up to his house into a tank. Well, we like to have the water a little higher, so we would gather mud and rocks and all kinds of stuff and make a little place where we could get down in the water. It was probably only 2 feet deep, but anyway, finally we'd get it up high enough so it would go over the top of the ram, and the ram would stop. And we knew that it would be only probably another half an hour or so until we'd see him coming up over the hill, coming down to start his ram again. So we would all scatter out of there and hide. Then he would see the dam and see Wyatt. And finally, one day after a few times, he discovered where we lived. He told Dad, and Dad says, you don't go down there anymore. So that was the end of our swimming. I remember one time we were down there, and there was mud wasps gathering mud for their nests, their little, you see them underneath eaves around houses. They were gathering mud, and I happened to step on one. Oh, I thought I was killed. It just really hurt so bad. That's the only time I've ever got stung by a mud wasp, but boy, they really hurt. When I was a kid, of course, it was a lot more probably. Probably not any more than a honeybee or something like that. I remember that. And so that was a couple of the enjoyment. Of course, we lived out, we had a pie cherry orchard right there at the house. And when the pie cherries were ripe, well, we'd go out there and eat pie cherries, and finally somebody would look in the cherry and, oh, there was a worm. So we wouldn't eat anymore. But anyway, we would climb the cherry trees and eat cherries until we were so full. And I remember eating, we had apples and things like that too. You hear about little boys and green apples. Well, yeah, we ate green apples until we got stomach aches. Too many green apples. But that was some of the joys of living out in the country. And then when I was 12 years old, of course, we had no church school out there in Canby. There was no church school. So I went to school out there at the grade school in Canby until I was in the 6th grade. I was 12 when we moved. Then we moved to where Grandma and Grandpa lived, on the banks of the Abernathy, and that was a lot of fun too, because we could go down and catch crawdads or go swimming, or I remember many times we'd be standing in a pool where we was swimming. And if we'd stand still for a while, pretty soon we'd feel something going on our toes. And we knew it was a crawdad down there. We was wondering how big he was. And so we'd move our foot and he'd of course be gone. But, and then we used to go fishing. We'd fish probably 2 or 3 times a week, go up and down the creek fishing. Never did catch anything bigger than about 8 inches long, but we had a lot of fun doing it. And we would build dams, and we would catch eels and all kinds of things.
It probably was a blessing that you went to school, public school, and because it was the teacher in the 2nd grade that was concerned about your neck.
Yeah, it was.
And
Yeah.
his
Miss
neck
Washburn, her name was.
his neck was starting to make his head go sideways, and it was so gradual. His family hadn't noticed it at all, but the teacher did, and so she said, "You need to get him to the doctor." And so his parents took him into the doctor, and then they transferred him to Shriners Hospital. Shriners,
yeah.
and they did surgery on it. And you were there how many months?
2 months.
Wow. What was the condition that you had?
I don't remember the name of it, but they cut a piece out of the cord of my neck here. Cut a piece out and sewed it back together, and that pulled my neck back up, and never did happen again. Anyway, that was really experience too. I remember where the old Shriners Hospital is. The building is still there, but it was over on Sandy and 82nd, between where they come together. And there was a boys' ward, and then there's a girls' ward.
Is that where the grotto is now?
Well, just this side of the grotto.
Okay.
Yeah.
That building must have been raised by now then.
No, I think it's
still there.
Seemed like it was still there last time I looked. I don't know. It's been years since I've looked. It could be now gone. But anyway, it was a big white building there, and it went on quite a ways back from the 82nd. But I remember they operated on me, and I had to have a brace that kept my neck just straight, and I couldn't move my head or couldn't do anything. It just kept my. It was a body. It went clear down around my body and around pieces.